From a young age, we are taught to share, give, and prioritize generosity over our own interests. But has anyone ever warned us about the potential dangers of excessive kindness and compassion? We live in a world where we don't always receive what we give, filled with individuals who, by being overly generous, deplete their financial and emotional resources through boundless giving. If this is your first time on my channel, I would appreciate your support by subscribing and liking this video so I can continue creating more content like this in the future. Could excessive generosity even put our own lives at risk? Prepare to be surprised by the unexpected negative effects that kindness can have. Today, I will reveal 8 outcomes of being overly kind and introduce 4 Stoic strategies to prevent others from taking advantage of you. Without further ado, let's get started. Unrealistic expectations. Excessive kindness often comes with an invisible burden: expectations. When we give freely and consistently, we begin to hope, whether consciously or not, that others will reciprocate in kind. This silent assumption sets the stage for disappointment. Imagine going out of your way to help friends, family, or co-workers. You lend your time, resources, and energy, believing that your acts of generosity will be met with appreciation or returned favors. But what happens when those moments come, and others fail to respond as you envisioned? The harsh reality of unmet expectations can sting, leaving you feeling overlooked, frustrated, and even resentful. Why do we fall into this trap? It's natural for humans to crave acknowledgement. When we invest ourselves into others, we instinctively hope for some form of validation, whether it's through praise, gratitude, or similar acts of kindness in return. But this reliance on external reactions shifts control away from us and places our emotional state in the hands of others. When those around us don't meet these unspoken expectations, we suffer. This can snowball into feelings of rejection or bitterness, damaging relationships and our sense of self-worth. Here, Stoic philosophy provides valuable insight. The ancient Stoics taught that the key to inner peace is to manage what we can control and let go of what we cannot. One of the primary teachings of Stoicism is understanding that our happiness should not be tethered to the actions or responses of others. The Roman philosopher Epictetus once suggested that if you wish to be free, you should not place your happiness in things beyond your control. This means that when we give, we should do so for the joy of giving itself, without expecting anything in return. Practicing this mindset requires a shift in perspective. When you decide to be generous, remind yourself that your act is complete the moment it is given. If someone responds with gratitude, see it as an added benefit, not a requirement. This subtle change allows you to give freely without the emotional strings attached. It cultivates a sense of fulfillment that comes from the act itself, not from any subsequent acknowledgement. Have you ever felt disappointment when your kindness was not acknowledged or reciprocated? Consider the implications of releasing these expectations. Without the weight of hoping for reciprocation, your actions become more authentic and aligned with your values. Generosity becomes an expression of who you are, rather than a currency for securing future favors. This change brings emotional freedom. When you aren't waiting for others to match your effort, disappointment loses its grip. You protect your peace by anchoring your sense of worth within yourself, not in the actions or opinions of others. Yet, it's important to understand that setting expectations for kindness isn't inherently wrong. Humans are wired to seek social bonds and mutual support. The issue arises when these expectations become assumptions or demands. Stoicism teaches us to engage in relationships with an open heart but also a discerning mind. If you notice that your kindness often goes unrecognized or exploited, it's a signal to reassess. Are you giving because it feels right, or are you secretly hoping for validation? This awareness allows you to fine-tune your actions and establish healthier emotional boundaries. The benefits of letting go of expectations extend beyond your own peace of mind. When people know that your generosity doesn't come with hidden strings, they're more likely to see it as genuine. This can build deeper trust and respect in your relationships. Moreover, when you free yourself from expecting a return on your kindness, you become more selective about when and how you give. This selectivity ensures that your acts of kindness are sustainable and that your emotional and physical resources are protected. A practical way to cultivate this mindset is through daily reflection. After an act of generosity, ask yourself, did I give because it aligned with my values or because I wanted something in return? Over time, this habit sharpens your self-awareness and reinforces a healthier approach to giving. It's not about stopping acts of kindness, but rather refining your reasons for them. In addition, remember that accepting that others may not respond as you'd hope doesn't make you indifferent. Instead, it positions you to act more wisely. When your kindness isn't reciprocated, Remind yourself that you did what was within your control. Let that be enough. The Stoics believed that virtue lies in how we respond to situations, not in the situations themselves. By practicing this, you build emotional resilience and protect yourself from the negative spiral of disappointment. In the end, the balance comes from giving with an open heart but expecting nothing in return. Embrace generosity as a personal value, not a transaction. This way, you maintain your peace, strengthen your emotional well-being, and practice the Stoic principle of finding contentment within. By detaching from expectations, you create a life where kindness is a source of strength, not a trigger for frustration. Dependence from others. One of the overlooked dangers of excessive kindness is that it can create a cycle of dependence. When you're consistently generous, others may begin to see your support not as a gesture, but as an expectation. Over time, this dependency grows, with friends, family, or colleagues unconsciously assuming that you'll always be there to assist or solve problems. This dynamic shifts the balance in relationships and places an invisible burden on the giver, while the receiver becomes comfortable in their reliance. At first, this reliance might seem harmless or even flattering. Helping others often brings a sense of fulfillment and purpose. However, as the pattern continues, you may find that your acts of kindness are met with complacency rather than appreciation. People come to you only when they need something, and rarely when it's time to offer support or companionship. The once balanced relationship transforms into a one-sided arrangement where your needs are overlooked, and your generosity is taken for granted. This can erode your emotional health and sense of autonomy. When others consistently rely on your resources, whether it's time, money, or emotional support, without reciprocating, it drains your energy and can lead to feelings of resentment and fatigue. You may begin to notice that your personal goals and well-being fall by the wayside as you focus on meeting the demands of others. This imbalance can cause stress, anxiety, and even burnout, impacting your overall quality of life. Stoic philosophy offers essential guidance on how to break this cycle through moderation and mindful boundaries. The Stoics believe that virtue lies in balance, not extremes. Practicing moderation means giving in a way that aligns with your values but ensures that your personal needs are also met. This approach prevents the exhaustion and emotional depletion that comes from constantly prioritizing others over yourself. To incorporate moderation, start by assessing the situations where your generosity has become routine rather than meaningful. Are there instances where you say yes out of habit or guilt rather than genuine desire? The Stoics emphasize the importance of intentional action, which means taking time to reflect before you offer help. By practicing mindful giving, you regain control over your energy and resources and prevent people from becoming overly dependent on you. Setting boundaries is an integral part of this practice. Establishing limits doesn't mean you care less. It means you care enough about yourself to preserve your well-being. These boundaries create a healthy dynamic where people know they can't rely on you for everything. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wisely advised that we should give only as much as we can afford without jeopardizing our peace of mind. This principle applies not just to money but to emotional energy and time. When you set clear boundaries, others are encouraged to develop their own problem-solving skills and become more self-sufficient. While setting boundaries might feel uncomfortable at first, remember that it's not selfish. On the contrary, it fosters mutual respect and a healthier relationship for both parties. It communicates that while you are willing to help, your generosity is not endless or to be taken for granted. People learn to approach you with a balanced expectation, knowing that while you will support them when possible, there are limits. This shift in behavior often leads to a positive ripple effect. When you give in moderation and establish boundaries, others begin to value your support more. They see it as a meaningful act rather than an obligation. Additionally, by not always being the first to step in, you give those around you the chance to take responsibility for their own challenges. This builds resilience and growth in them, creating stronger, more reciprocal relationships. Practical steps to maintain this balance include practicing the art of saying no and allowing yourself time to consider requests before responding. This pause gives you the space to evaluate if the act of giving aligns with your capacity and values. Another strategy is to redirect some of that generosity inward, investing time and energy into activities that rejuvenate and fulfill you. This helps you build the resilience needed to continue supporting others without losing yourself in the process. Lastly, it's essential to recognize that moderation doesn't mean withholding kindness. It means giving thoughtfully. Stoic philosophy encourages us to contribute positively to the lives of others, but not at the cost of our own stability. By practicing this principle, you protect your peace and cultivate relationships rooted in genuine connection and respect. You move from being a constant savior to a balanced supporter, encouraging mutual growth and appreciation. In conclusion, remember that unchecked generosity can create a cycle where people depend on you without giving back. The practice of moderation, as taught by the Stoics, empowers you to offer help in a way that preserves your well-being. This not only maintains your control but also encourages others to grow and stand on their own, fostering more balanced and fulfilling relationships. Neglecting your priorities. Are you sacrificing your personal time and goals for the sake of others? When you constantly put others before yourself, it's easy to lose sight of your own needs and aspirations. This pattern of self-neglect often begins with good intentions, wanting to help, support, or uplift those around you. However, when your priorities are habitually overshadowed by the needs of others, it leads to an erosion of personal goals and mental well-being. Over time, you may find that the person who once had ambitions, hobbies, and a voice is replaced by someone who runs on empty, always striving to meet external demands. The impact of continually placing others first can be profound. It starts subtly with small sacrifices, skipping your workout to run an errand for a friend, postponing your own projects to assist a coworker, or letting your personal downtime be overtaken by obligations. These acts may seem insignificant in isolation, but they accumulate. Before long, you're stretched thin, caught in a cycle where your own dreams are pushed further into the background. The result is emotional exhaustion, frustration, and even resentment. You might look around and wonder, how did I get here? As you realize that your sense of purpose has become tied to fulfilling the needs of others instead of nurturing your own. The Stoics had deep insights into the importance of balance and living in harmony with one's true self. They emphasized that each person must take responsibility for their own actions and well-being. A core Stoic principle is that we should live according to our nature, maintaining authenticity and virtue. Part of that is recognizing the value of self-care, not as a luxury but as an essential part of a balanced life. Setting boundaries is not just a protective measure, it's an act of self-respect and authenticity. When you establish clear limits, you communicate that your time, energy, and well-being are important. This aligns with the Stoic belief that true strength lies in self-discipline and understanding what is within your control. While it's admirable to help others, Stoicism teaches that we cannot sacrifice our own well-being in the pursuit of pleasing everyone else. To do so is to live contrary to our true nature, which can lead to inner turmoil and a sense of disconnection from oneself. Consider what happens when you neglect your own needs for too long. The emotional distress that comes from constantly prioritizing others can manifest in different ways. You might feel perpetually tired, lose motivation for personal projects, or find yourself becoming irritable even when helping those you care about. These signs are your mind and body signaling that your boundaries have been crossed too often. Ignoring these warnings leads to a cycle of diminishing returns, where the energy and care you offer to others are diluted by your own unmet needs. Stoicism teaches us that boundaries do not signify selfishness. They represent self-awareness and wisdom. By setting boundaries, you protect your capacity to give without depleting yourself. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius reminded us that we must take care of ourselves to be effective in the world. He wrote about the importance of being true to oneself, even when faced with the pressures and expectations of others. When you prioritize setting boundaries, you cultivate a sense of self-worth. It's a powerful shift. Acknowledging that your time and energy are valuable reinforces that your well-being is as important as anyone else's. This doesn't mean abandoning kindness or turning your back on those who need help. Instead, it's about finding the right balance, where helping others does not come at the cost of your own peace and fulfillment. To start practicing this balance, reflect on your current commitments and identify areas where your priorities have been compromised. Are there activities or relationships that consistently drain you? Are you saying yes out of habit or fear of disappointing others? Learning to say no is a crucial part of reclaiming your time and mental space. At first, this may feel uncomfortable, but as you practice, it becomes an empowering way to safeguard your well-being. Create moments in your day dedicated to your own growth, whether that's pursuing a hobby, spending time in quiet reflection, or working on a personal project. Treat these times as non-negotiable. When others request your help during these periods, consider responding with, "I can't right now, but I'm available at this other time." This small shift in behavior reinforces your boundaries while still allowing you to support others on your terms. Recognizing and honoring your own needs strengthens your sense of authenticity. You start living in alignment with your values, rather than being swept away by the expectations of those around you. This approach builds not only inner peace but also healthier, more balanced relationships. When you take care of yourself, You model the importance of self-respect to those around you. They come to understand that your generosity is genuine, not a silent cry for approval or validation. In conclusion, constantly prioritizing others can lead to emotional distress and a weakened sense of self. By setting boundaries as a form of self-care, you preserve your authenticity and well-being. The Stoics remind us that living in harmony with ourselves is essential to living a meaningful life. By valuing your time and energy, you ensure that your acts of kindness are sustainable and come from a place of strength, not sacrifice. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. This will inspire me to create more quality videos and help YouTube understand that my content is valuable to people. And if you leave a comment as well, it will make me happy. Perception of weakness. While kindness and generosity are often praised as strengths, there is a paradox. Helping too much can sometimes be perceived as a weakness. When you consistently put others' needs ahead of your own, you may be seen not as selfless, but as someone who lacks boundaries. This perception can invite exploitation. People may begin to assume that you are willing to shoulder their responsibilities without question, treating your helpful nature as a tool they can wield whenever it suits them. Over time, this can lead to a pattern where others expect you to say yes by default and fail to respect your time, effort, or well-being. The consequences of being seen as perpetually available are more than just an overloaded schedule. They touch your self-respect and personal strength. When people recognize that you rarely set limits, they may stop valuing your contributions. Instead of viewing your help as a generous act, they might come to see it as a given, almost an entitlement. This shift in perception can erode your sense of worth, leading to frustration and disillusionment. Worse, it can leave you vulnerable to manipulation by those who see kindness not as a virtue but as an opportunity. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes a valuable guide. The Stoics emphasize the importance of maintaining self-respect and practicing discernment. They believed that true strength lies in the ability to control one's responses and actions. One key element of this strength is knowing when to say no. This simple word, though often difficult to say, serves as a powerful boundary. It reinforces that while you are capable of giving, you value your own well-being enough to protect it. Saying no is an act of courage. It communicates to others that your kindness is a choice, not an obligation. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about the importance of self-control and prioritizing one's own path. He advised that we must remember to act according to our principles, rather than be swept along by the desires or demands of others. By confidently asserting your limits, you shift the perception from being overly accommodating to being someone who values themselves. But how do you change the narrative and prevent being seen as weak? Start by acknowledging that saying no is not an act of defiance or selfishness. It's a way to maintain balance and protect your capacity to help when it truly matters. Practicing saying no in small situations helps build the confidence to do so in larger, more demanding ones. For instance, when asked to take on extra tasks at work or asked for favors that stretch your resources, give yourself the space to evaluate before responding. A thoughtful pause before answering shows that your time is valuable and that you won't agree to everything automatically. When you begin to establish boundaries, people's reactions may vary. Those who respect you will understand and appreciate the change, even if it requires them to adjust their expectations. Others may initially push back, testing to see if your limits are firm. This is an essential moment in asserting your self-respect. When you remain consistent in maintaining your boundaries, you reinforce the message that you are not an endless source of help, but a person with your own needs and priorities. Over time, saying no becomes a statement of inner strength. The Stoics believed that self-discipline is crucial for a virtuous life, and part of that discipline is knowing when to conserve your energy and protect your peace. If you find yourself struggling with guilt after setting boundaries, remind yourself that preserving your well-being allows you to continue being of service without reaching exhaustion or resentment. Helping from a place of choice rather than obligation enhances the quality of your generosity and ensures it is sustainable. Self-respect also involves recognizing your worth independent of how much you do for others. When you consistently prioritize others' needs at the expense of your own, it can feel as though your value is tied only to your utility. The Stoic approach refutes this by teaching that your value comes from who you are, not just what you do. Setting boundaries and occasionally saying no remind both you and those around you that your time, energy, and life have inherent value. It reestablishes your position as an equal, not just a resource. To shift from being seen as weak to being respected, embrace the idea that saying no is an act of self-care and a declaration of personal strength. By setting boundaries, you show that your generosity is purposeful, not something to be exploited. This change in perception fosters healthier, more balanced relationships. People will come to recognize that your support is genuine and valuable precisely because it is not endless or indiscriminate. In conclusion, helping too much can indeed be perceived as a weakness, making you vulnerable to being taken advantage of. The Stoic practice of self-respect, embodied in the ability to say no, reinforces personal strength and protects your peace of mind. It reminds you and those around you that true generosity stems from choice, not compulsion, and that preserving your well-being is not just important, it's essential. Conditional relationships. Unconditional generosity, while noble, can come with an unexpected cost, attracting people who only seek you out when they need something. At first, this may not be obvious. You may believe that your acts of kindness are building strong bonds and creating connections based on mutual appreciation. However, over time, it can become clear that some people are only present when they have a need, quickly disappearing when there's no favor to ask or problem to solve. This pattern can be disheartening and make you question the authenticity of those relationships. The nature of these conditional relationships is that they often lack balance. They are defined by a one-sided dynamic where you are the giver and others are the receivers. These interactions might be transactional at their core, with your generosity acting as the glue that holds the relationship together. When the giving stops or becomes less frequent, the relationship may falter, revealing that it was never truly built on mutual respect or shared values. The Stoics believed in the importance of discernment when navigating social relationships. They understood that while kindness and generosity are virtuous, they must be paired with wisdom. Not every relationship deserves the same level of investment. According to Stoic principles, it's crucial to differentiate between those who value you for who you are and those who are drawn solely by what you can provide. This recognition protects your emotional energy and fosters more meaningful connections. Recognizing the signs of a conditional relationship involves observing patterns. Does someone only reach out when they need help but rarely check in when things are going well? Do they express genuine interest in your life, or is their focus primarily on what you can do for them? These observations are key to understanding whether the relationship is balanced or conditional. Stoicism teaches that relationships based on mutual respect and shared virtue are the ones worth nurturing. Marcus Aurelius, in his Reflections, emphasized surrounding oneself with those who uplift and inspire, not those who drain or exploit. While practicing generosity is inherently good, it is not wise to expend your resources, whether emotional, physical, or financial, on people who only see you as a means to an end. Fostering genuine relationships means creating connections where there is an even exchange of support and care. This doesn't mean cutting people off at the first sign of self-interest. It means approaching relationships with mindful evaluation. Ask yourself, does this person offer support or acknowledgement without a hidden agenda? Do they value you outside of what you can provide? The Stoics would advise cultivating relationships where generosity flows both ways, fostering trust and appreciation. When relationships are built on reciprocity, they strengthen your sense of connection and contribute to your well-being. Practicing discernment can feel challenging, especially if you're accustomed to giving without expecting anything in return. You might worry about appearing selfish or unkind. However, Stoicism reminds us that true virtue is not found in blind sacrifice but in balanced living. This balance involves choosing how and where to invest your energy. Saying yes selectively allows you to maintain your generosity while ensuring that it nourishes relationships that are genuinely supportive. One way to identify genuine connections is by considering how people react when the dynamic shifts. If you temporarily pull back from offering help, observe who checks in with you just to ask how you're doing. True friends and companions will express concern for your well-being, not just for the loss of your assistance. This change can act as a litmus test for the health of your relationships. Implementing boundaries in these interactions is essential. By setting limits on how much you give and when, you communicate that your kindness is a choice, not an obligation. This approach helps to shift conditional relationships toward more balanced territory or reveals their true nature. The Stoics would advocate for such boundaries as an expression of self-respect. Seneca, for instance, believed that nurturing our own well-being enables us to be better companions and members of our community. When your relationships are more balanced, the moments of generosity you share become acts of joy rather than duty. It's also important to cultivate relationships where your needs are met as well. Stoic thought encourages forming bonds that are built on shared principles, virtues, and mutual growth. These relationships don't thrive solely on one party's giving. Instead, they are marked by an ongoing exchange of support, listening, and understanding. They withstand challenges and don't dissolve when assistance is not readily available. Over time, learning to recognize and focus on relationships based on mutual respect enriches your life. It helps you direct your energy toward people who uplift you and move away from interactions that drain you. This practice doesn't mean avoiding generosity, it means enhancing it by ensuring that your efforts contribute to deeper, more genuine bonds. This shift not only strengthens your emotional well-being but aligns with the Stoic teaching that wisdom and discernment are at the heart of living a virtuous life. In conclusion, while unconditional generosity can attract people who only seek you out when they need something, understanding the difference between conditional and genuine relationships is essential. The Stoic practice of discernment allows you to give wisely, maintain your self-respect, and foster connections built on mutual support and shared values. By investing in balanced relationships, you create a life enriched by deeper trust, appreciation, and genuine connection. At needy individuals. Excessive giving, even when driven by the best intentions, can have unintended consequences. One of the most significant is that it can attract individuals who consistently take without offering anything in return. These people, sometimes referred to as energy takers, may see your endless generosity as an open invitation to rely on you without contributing to the relationship. Over time, this dynamic can leave you feeling drained, unappreciated, and emotionally exhausted. When your generosity becomes a pattern of giving without boundaries, you unintentionally send a signal that you're always available regardless of the cost to your own well-being. People who thrive on this dynamic often latch onto those who are willing to help, finding comfort in someone who can meet their needs with little or no reciprocation. While helping others is a positive trait, constantly giving without considering your own needs can leave you with depleted energy and erode your self-worth. It's essential to recognize that these individuals aren't always malicious or overtly manipulative. Sometimes they are simply accustomed to taking support wherever it is freely offered and may not even realize the impact they're having on you. However, their behavior can create a cycle that saps your emotional and physical resources. The result? You may find yourself with less time and energy to focus on meaningful relationships and activities that genuinely nurture you. Stoic philosophy provides a powerful approach to addressing this issue. The Stoics emphasized acting with intention and maintaining balance in all aspects of life. One of the key teachings in Stoicism is to apply discernment in our actions. This means recognizing when our generosity aligns with our values and when it crosses the line into self-sacrifice that undermines our peace and well-being. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, noted that we should not give indiscriminately. Instead, we should give where it benefits both ourselves and those around us. Maintaining high standards in your generosity is a practical way to protect yourself from being a magnet for needy individuals. This doesn't mean withholding kindness or becoming guarded. Instead, it means being selective about where and how you invest your time and energy. Ask yourself, is this act of giving meaningful, or am I simply trying to avoid guilt or maintain a reputation as someone who is always helpful? By evaluating your motivations, you can make sure that your acts of kindness are deliberate rather than habitual. Setting boundaries is an essential practice here. When you establish clear limits on your availability and resources, it sends a message that your generosity is a gift, not an expectation. For example, if someone regularly seeks your help without contributing to the relationship, it may be time to reevaluate how much of your support you offer. Politely turning down requests or suggesting alternative solutions helps maintain your standards without cutting people off completely. This approach encourages others to respect your time and reconsider their own habits. When you uphold these standards, you also naturally attract more balanced individuals into your life. People who appreciate your support but don't rely on it exclusively. These are the types of relationships where there is an even flow of giving and receiving, creating connections that are mutually enriching. When your generosity is paired with discernment, you foster an environment where people feel valued but also responsible for their own well-being. This shift not only protects you from exhaustion but enhances the quality of the relationships you choose to maintain. It's important to remember that high standards and generosity don't only protect you, they elevate the interactions you have. When people see that you value your own time and well-being, they are more likely to mirror that respect and offer it back. Genuine friends and partners will admire your ability to balance kindness with self-care and will make an effort to contribute to the relationship. This strengthens trust and creates a deeper bond where both parties feel seen and supported. Maintaining these standards may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you are used to being the go-to person for help. You might worry about appearing cold or selfish. However, Stoicism teaches that living a virtuous life involves prioritizing what is right for you, not just what is popular or easy. Setting these boundaries is a form of self-respect, showing that you understand the value of your time and energy. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to stay true to his principles and not be swayed by external pressures. You, too, can apply this wisdom by holding yourself to high standards that reflect your inner values. To practice this, start small. The next time you're asked for help, pause and assess whether this act aligns with your capacity and priorities. If it doesn't, offer an alternative or decline politely. Over time, this will become second nature, and you'll build relationships that are not defined by what you can do for others, but by mutual appreciation and respect. In conclusion, excessive giving can attract needy individuals who deplete your resources without contributing to your life. The Stoic approach to generosity involves applying discernment and maintaining high standards to protect your energy and foster balanced relationships. By being thoughtful and selective with your kindness, you create a life filled with meaningful connections that are built on mutual support and respect. Risk of addiction. Do you find your sense of worth tied to how much you help others? Overgiving can evolve into an addictive pattern that carries serious emotional and physical repercussions. At first, being generous may provide a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. However, as the pattern solidifies, the act of giving can shift from being a conscious choice to an unconscious habit. This compulsion to constantly help others can create a cycle that is difficult to break, trapping you in a state of perpetual giving. While generosity itself is virtuous, when taken to an extreme, it becomes an unsustainable practice that leads to exhaustion, stress, and even resentment. One of the reasons overgiving becomes addictive is that it is often rewarded with external validation. Compliments and gratitude from others can make you feel valued and needed. This positive reinforcement can create a dependency where your sense of self-worth becomes tied to how much you do for others. Over time, you might find yourself seeking that validation more frequently, pushing yourself to give even when it compromises your well-being. This can lead to a vicious cycle. The more you give, the more you feel obligated to continue, despite the mounting toll on your mental and physical health. This pattern can result in emotional exhaustion, where the simple act of helping feels overwhelming, yet the fear of disappointing others prevents you from stepping back. It can also manifest as physical fatigue, as your body struggles to keep up with the demands you place on it. Chronic stress and a lack of downtime weaken your resilience, leaving you susceptible to burnout. The very acts that once brought joy and connection can become a source of frustration and depletion. Stoic philosophy offers powerful tools to address and prevent this cycle. One of the central tenets of Stoicism is moderation, finding balance in every aspect of life to maintain harmony and avoid extremes. The Stoics believe that virtue lies not in overextending oneself but in acting wisely and intentionally. Seneca's writings remind us that moderation is essential to sustaining any virtue, including generosity. The goal is not to stop giving but to do so in a way that preserves your own well-being while allowing you to continue helping others in the long term. To break the cycle of overgiving, it's important to acknowledge the warning signs of potential burnout. These can include persistent fatigue, irritability, feelings of being unappreciated, or a reluctance to engage in acts of kindness that once brought joy. Recognizing these signals is the first step toward reclaiming balance. The Stoics advocated for regular self-reflection, a practice that can help you identify when your actions start to veer into excess. By routinely checking in with yourself and assessing your motivations, you create an opportunity to course-correct before reaching the point of exhaustion. Implementing moderation involves setting realistic limits on your giving. This can be as simple as pausing to ask yourself whether you have the energy and resources to offer help at any given moment. If the answer is no, consider whether saying yes would ultimately serve you and those around you. Stoicism teaches that true kindness does not stem from compulsion. It is a choice rooted in strength and wisdom. By understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup, you align your actions with a sustainable approach to generosity. Another Stoic practice that helps counteract overgiving is the mindful use of the word no. Marcus Aurelius wrote about maintaining focus on what truly matters and not allowing oneself to be distracted by unnecessary obligations. Saying no to certain requests is not an act of selfishness but one of self-preservation. It allows you to maintain your energy and keep your mind clear for moments when your help is most needed and impactful. Practice saying no with compassion, understanding that it reinforces your boundaries and ensures that your generosity remains authentic and sustainable. Developing a balanced approach to giving also involves recognizing when your motivation stems from a need for external validation. The Stoics emphasize the importance of finding contentment within oneself rather than relying on others' approval. By cultivating inner strength and self-respect, you break the dependency on praise and appreciation. This helps you give from a place of genuine desire, not as a means to prove your worth or maintain a certain image. Self-care plays a crucial role in maintaining moderation. The Stoics taught that caring for oneself is not indulgence but a necessary part of living a virtuous life. Setting aside time for rest, relaxation, and personal pursuits ensures that you remain resilient and capable of supporting others without compromising your own health. Prioritize activities that rejuvenate you, whether it's reading, meditating, or spending time in nature. These moments of self-care help reset your energy and provide the strength needed to continue giving in a balanced way. Finally, remember that moderation and generosity allows you to be more present and effective in your acts of kindness. When you give within your means, your contributions are more thoughtful and impactful, rather than rushed or obligatory. This practice reinforces the Stoic principle that quality outweighs quantity. Your acts of giving should be meaningful, not simply habitual. In conclusion, while generosity is a commendable trait, overgiving can lead to addictive behavior and eventual exhaustion. By practicing moderation, acknowledging warning signs, and setting clear boundaries, you can avoid the pitfalls of burnout. Stoic teachings remind us that balance is essential for a life well lived. By giving intentionally and maintaining your well-being, you ensure that your kindness remains a source of strength, both for yourself and those you help. Eliciting suspicion. Consistent acts of kindness, while inherently good, can sometimes yield an unexpected result, arousing suspicion rather than trust. In a world where motives are often questioned, a person who is perpetually kind might be met with skepticism. Instead of being seen as genuine, their actions can be viewed as overly altruistic or manipulative. People might wonder what's the catch, or assume there are hidden motives behind such consistent generosity. This reaction can be surprising and disheartening for someone whose intentions are sincere. Why does this happen? Human nature is conditioned by experience and self-preservation. Many individuals have encountered situations where apparent kindness masked ulterior motives, whether in business, social relationships, or personal connections. As a result, when someone exhibits persistent kindness, it may trigger an automatic defensive response. People might view this person as insincere, suspecting that their motives are driven by a desire for power, favor, or some unspoken advantage. This perception can lead to isolation for the giver, who may feel misunderstood or unappreciated. Consistently encountering doubt and skepticism can chip away at one's confidence and willingness to be kind. It can also result in frustration and a sense of futility, making the person question whether their kindness is worth the backlash it sometimes brings. However, Stoic philosophy provides a valuable approach to navigating these situations. The Stoics emphasize the importance of acting virtuously, regardless of how those actions are perceived by others. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This means that your actions should be guided by your own principles and values, not by the opinions or judgments of those around you. The goal is to live according to virtue for its own sake, without seeking external validation or fearing negative interpretations. Practicing Stoic teachings in this context involves focusing on your internal compass. If your actions stem from genuine kindness and align with your values, their perception by others becomes secondary. This doesn't mean ignoring how your behavior affects those around you, but it does mean letting go of the need for universal approval. When you act from a place of authenticity and integrity, you embody what the Stoics considered true strength, being unwavering in your principles despite external doubts. It's essential to recognize that eliciting suspicion doesn't always mean your kindness is misunderstood due to any fault of your own. People's responses are influenced by their own experiences, insecurities, and biases. Just as you can't control the weather, you can't control how others perceive you. Stoic philosophy advises acknowledging this reality and focusing instead on what you can control: your actions and your reactions. The next time your kindness is met with suspicion, pause and reflect on your motivation. Did you act in alignment with your beliefs? If the answer is yes, then any skepticism you face is beyond your realm of influence. This awareness helps prevent negative emotions such as resentment or discouragement from clouding your mind. It also reinforces the Stoic practice of apatheia, a state of equanimity where you maintain peace of mind regardless of external circumstances. One way to embody this principle is by cultivating resilience against negative perceptions. If others question your motives, remind yourself that their doubt says more about them than it does about you. Holding on to this perspective helps preserve your emotional balance and reinforces that your self-worth is independent of others' judgments. Stoics like Epictetus emphasize that our control ends where others' interpretations begin. By accepting this, You liberate yourself from the burden of needing approval. Continuing to act with consistent kindness, despite occasional skepticism, can also shift people's perceptions over time. When they see that your generosity is unwavering and not tied to any hidden agenda, trust may gradually replace doubt. While this transformation isn't guaranteed, acting consistently with virtue solidifies your reputation as someone who is principled and authentic. Even if full acceptance isn't achieved, you'll have the assurance that you are living in accordance with your own values. Setting boundaries can also play a role in managing how your kindness is perceived. By not overextending yourself or appearing to be available at all times, you communicate that your actions come from a place of choice rather than compulsion or manipulation. This subtle shift can help others see that your generosity is intentional and balanced, not a strategy for validation or control. Ultimately, living a life guided by virtue requires accepting that not everyone will understand or agree with your actions. The Stoics would argue that this acceptance is a form of freedom from the weight of others' opinions and the constant need to prove oneself. Marcus Aurelius taught that true contentment comes from within and that the only validation needed is your own honest appraisal of whether you are acting in accordance with your values. In conclusion, while consistent kindness may sometimes arouse suspicion rather than trust, it is vital to stay true to your principles. Stoic philosophy reminds us to act with virtue and integrity regardless of others' opinions. By focusing on what you can control and releasing the need for external validation, you create a sense of inner strength and peace. Your kindness remains a reflection of who you are, not a response to how others perceive you. Navigating the complexities of generosity can be challenging, especially when faced with unexpected reactions or consequences. Whether it's managing unrealistic expectations, avoiding emotional exhaustion, or dealing with suspicion, the teachings of Stoic philosophy provide invaluable tools for balance and resilience. By practicing moderation, setting boundaries, and focusing on acting virtuously regardless of others' opinions, you can maintain your well-being and build more meaningful, balanced relationships. Thank you for joining me in exploring these insights on how kindness, when unchecked, can have hidden costs and how Stoicism helps us navigate them wisely. If you found value in this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps me continue creating more content like this. Lastly, please note that this video has been narrated using AI technology. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.